morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on what side of the pond you're on, and welcome to the Accrington Stanley 2022-2023 season preview edition of Across the Pitch. My name is Phil Kennedy, and I'm here with co-hosts Tony Robinson and Darren Woodhead today, where we're going to look ahead to the Accrington season that officially kicks off against Charlton on Saturday. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited because we have a lot of new things to look forward to on the pitch and off the pitch. I know, Tony, you have a trip that you're planning to go over to. I know that, Darren, you have lots of exciting things that are happening with the Supporters Trust that we'll touch on later. But first and foremost, let's jump right into our season preview. How are you guys doing? Are you guys looking forward to the results this season?
Yeah, great. Definitely, Phil. I'm really looking forward to this season. Just saying 22-23 season, I'm thinking that seems a while since millennium, doesn't it? It soon passes, doesn't it, time? Yeah, so this season I can't wait. Especially we're having no World Cup or European Championships, etc. for us over here. I've been keeping my eye on obviously the women's Euros and different other sports, but we just seem to have been starved this summer, so I'm raring to go with Stanley.
That's a great point that you make about the World Cup, because especially over here in the United States, we kind of joke that Americans only care about politics once every 4 years when we have a presidential election. And Americans generally only care about soccer, as we call it here, every 4 years when the World Cup comes around. So I really think it's going to be an outstanding opportunity for us to maybe get the eyes of Americans on Accrington Stanley, because we're already going to be focused a little more on association football on this side of the pond with the World Cup coming up.
Yeah, not to mention another team who've qualified as well. Tony.
Yes. Hiya, fellas. I got thrown off because Phil mentioned politics, and I thought that was on our list of things we don't talk about.
Well, I just was saying that Americans only care about politics once every 4 years. No actual political take or anything.
Well, I'm going to say one thing, and then we'll go on to football. But I think watching American politics is like a train crash. It's like a reality show train crash. But anyway, I didn't mean to be that in the negative way, Phil. But anyway,
I have nothing good to say about American politics.
If it's any consolation, it's the same over here.
I'm excited, obviously, about the season, of course. But I think one of the things I just wanted to touch on before we jump into that is, we talk about, we get suggestions and from listeners, and people comment about the shows we do, and can we do this, can we do that kind of thing. But one of the things I don't think a lot of people really get the gist of is the work behind the scenes that we go through to get a guest. I know, Darren, from your point of view, you put out feelers for the veterans, and sometimes it can take months before it comes to fruition. And the same with players. I have to go through the media, through the club. And if a player wants to come on, it's fine, it's great. But if he doesn't, then it's pretty tough to force them. But then the research goes into it. Whoever's taking the lead, if it's for Darren on the veterans, he prepares the show notes and distributes it. And same for me when it's the players. And then Phil is the conductor. He's the orchestra, of the orchestra, because you bring it all together with the intro and the editing and production and things like that. So
the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain pulling the strings. And yeah, I mean, I think just to follow up on what you were saying, Tony, I think one of the biggest things here is, we don't ever want to force somebody to come on the show. If somebody comes on the show, it's because they want to be here and they want to talk football. And that's something that I think is important, is that in order order to have a good conversation, the person on the other end of the line has to want to be there to talk about it as well. And I think that's the reason that we've had success in putting out quality content. Is because the guests on the other end of the line have been so forthcoming with, personal stories and things like that. And especially with some of the veterans that Darren has dug up, we've been able to tell stories about Accrington Stanley that haven't been told before. And that's what I'm most proud of.
Yeah, so, I mean, on that note, it's fitting that we just mentioned that at the moment because there's one guy who I've reached out to this week, and I was really keen on getting him on, and I have been for some time, actually. He's Phil Edwards, and he was going to come on, and unfortunately he's in hospital at the moment with something very serious at the age of 36. So I just want to wish him, and from all of us, a speedy recovery, and we hope to get him on in the future. On that. Yeah, and I'm sure Phil will join us in time to come. And even this week, sometimes it takes you about 3-4 months before we can arrange for people to come on. And only this week, one thing leads to another. A guy called Phil Hackney, who used to he started the academy at Stanley, and he was listening in on the Chris Turner episode, and now he's going to come on as a guest. We've got Tom Aldred, who's playing in the A-League in Australia, he used to play for Stanley. He's said he's going to come and join us. And Paul Beck, who's a legend at Stanley and someone who was on my original list, contacted me this week and said he'd like to come on. So it's really, like Phil said, we don't want to force anybody to come, but the fact that people are actually approaching us with a view to go on after my initial reaching out to them, it's amazing.
Yeah, and I think the challenge we have too that sometimes we take for granted is the different time zones that we're in. From Darren to Phil, I think it's 8 hours different, isn't it?
It depends on the time of year, because here in Arizona we don't do daylight savings, so part of the year it's 7 hours, part of the year it's 8 hours.
Yeah, but it goes. I mean, we have to. You're recording in the morning, and I'm in mid-afternoon, early afternoon, and for Darren it's in the evening. So they do prevent some challenges, but it's and like today, for example, the technical problems getting online and that. So and we had the one guest that we had to cancel because of issues, and then the guest was kind enough to come back on a month later. So it's just that we the challenges that we run across, and one of the things I'm looking forward to is actually meeting with Luke Pearson at the club and personally arranging for some player interviews because it's hard sometimes with the distance involved, and I'm looking forward to doing some face-to-face meetings then, and we'll get things underway for players. So yeah, I just wanted to sort of touch on that, let people know that there's a lot more than just dialing somebody up and then recording it, and that's it. It's a lot more work to it than that.
One of the things that you had mentioned, Darren, was Phil Hackney, who was one of the guys behind starting the Accrington Stanley Academy, which has really become such a big part of Accrington Stanley. And that leads me into what I wanted to talk about is just today, we made a signing for a guy that we're going to see probably pop up on the under-23 team. That's Enoch Luciama, who just joined us. He was actually the 7th player that Accrington has signed during the offseason, so we've been super busy. He's a guy who's only been in the UK for 3 years after moving over from Spain when he was 19. He's 22 now, and could be a big part of the future plans. It looks like we're going to be bringing in some young strikers and hopefully see him on the first team. The only thing that I didn't like is I saw that he's wearing a Los Angeles Dodgers hat in his interview. Tony, we're going to need to get him a Diamondbacks or a Blue Jays hat.
Well, to be fair to him, he did wear the logo upside down, so I don't know what the meaning is of that. We would have to ask him about that. But let's get back to the upcoming season. I think one of the things that if we sort of look at first is the players that left. And then we can talk about the players that come in. And I know that the 3 players that we talked to John Coleman about when we talked to him a month ago about possible moves out, two of those three have gone, and Toby Salmon is the one that's left, or still with the club, I should say. Are we surprised that the two left? And if so, are we happy with the money that they got back?
From my point of view, Tony, it's when they say undisclosed, I don't think we know how much we actually got back, do we? I've never been really sure about that undisclosed term and the reasons behind it. But I'm sure as a club, we've got decent money. They were both under contract. It makes sense for the club and the players involved. They both did the time for Accrington, played well for the time they were at the club, and now they've moved on. Interesting to see how Ross goes on, especially with being in another country. That's going to be intriguing to keep an eye on. And also Colby, just, to see, can he, although, it's not a major step up in terms of leagues, it's just to see how he fares at a so-called big club.
Yeah, I think that I'm kind of on the same page where, we had obviously talked about that we thought these guys might be moving on, so it's certainly not a surprise that they have. In terms of money, undisclosed makes it difficult to say whether we're happy about it or not. I would say that some of the rumored amounts I've heard were maybe a little bit less than I would have hoped for, but I think that maybe that's always the case where you're going to be hoping for more. But I think what my biggest concern is that I'm not sure that we've done enough to replace the guys that we've lost. I mean, especially over the last 2 years, it kind of started when Burgess was sold off, and then, of course, Matt Butcher left. That was something that, he just wanted to move back south and be closer to his family. And then now we've had Ross and Bishop move on. And it's just a lot of guys that have been really the core of the roster over the last 3 or 4 years have moved on. And I just, I question, have we brought in enough talent to be able to replace them? Looking back historically, in John we trust. John Coleman has always been able to bring in the guys and, restock and reload on the fly. But I mean, when I look especially at the striker position, I can't say that I'm not concerned just by, I guess, the lack of experience.
Yeah, and I think looking at the team, roster as you call it, Phil, I think, the squad in general, we've got the numbers. We've got, I think that we've definitely got the numbers. There's a lot of new players coming, unknown quantities that I can't judge them because I've never seen them play really, and an odd friendly. So I think some of these guys are going to have to hit the ground running. And I think that the goals are going to have to be shared out amongst the team, because I can't see a player getting 15, 20 goals, but I hope I'm wrong and one of these guys steps up and does that. We may be reliant on, Sean getting 8 to 10 goals, Tommy Lee getting 8 to 10 goals and working it that way. Who knows? Time will tell, won't it? We're all experts before the season starts.
Yeah, I think that's where the goals are probably going to come from, Darren, is it by committee really, is you're not going to have one person that stands out, because let's face it, the strikers that have been brought in are unproven at this level. I mean, they seem to have performed in the preseason. Matt Lowe got a couple in the first couple of games. And then when this young lad, Alhaji Torres Cisse, seemed to impress when he came on. But again, it's preseason. It's a short burst of experience that we've seen. And it's a long season, and it's a tough road in League One. So, I think the concerns are where the goal's going to come from. But I get that sense that when we talk to John Coleman, and based on the performances in preseason, is that they've really made an effort to stop conceding a large number of goals. And hopefully by doing that, then the need to score 3 or 4 to win a match might be, you might be able to get by with 1 or 2 if preseason is successful. So yeah, I think I think it's going to be a different way they play this year. I just don't see it the same as a 4-4-2 like we've seen in the past with Bishop and whoever up front.
I definitely think you're onto something based on what Coleman has said, because in all of his interviews, he's really focused on that they shipped too many goals last season and really cutting down on that. So I do think that we're going to see more of a defensive-oriented set of tactics. In terms of goals, though, I mean, the X factor to me is going to be the health of Joe Pritchard. This is a guy that when he's on the pitch, there's little doubt that he could be a guy that could give 10 goals and 10 assists. It's just, looking, he's been with Stanley for 3 years. His first year, he played 30 matches. His second year, he played 28 matches. Last year, he only played 10 matches. So, I mean, injuries have been a big problem for him. I mean, even before he came to Stanley, he had some injury issues with Tottenham. So, I mean, it's to me, this is a huge year for Pritchard where, if we can get 35, 40 starts out of Pritchard, keep him healthy, keep him on the pitch, then I think our offense is going to be okay. If the injury bug pops up with him again, then I'm just not sure that, we have the guys to step up that we have in previous years and fill his shoes if he does get another injury.
Yeah, I think one player who could, and we're going to come on to players who we think are going to make a big impact this season, and I do think it's a big season for Tommy Lee. I like what I see with Tommy. For his first season in league football, I think he excelled last year, and he's just got something about him. He knows where to be at the right time, and I watch him, and I think he's just getting better and better, and I can definitely see a lot of interest from that guy.
Do you think he didn't seem to play a lot in preseason? Do you think Coleman was just sort of holding him back and not sort of overplaying him in preseason? He knows what he's got, and he's going to play anyway.
Yeah, maybe you don't know who's got slight niggles, do you? They're holding back a little bit because they've just come back into pre-season. We know Michael Nottingham, he hasn't played. He's got a niggling injury, so he's going to miss a few games at the beginning of the season. That'll be a big loss. He's a personal favourite to mine. I love watching Michael Nottingham play.
He put in
he's
6
a great
goals
player
too last year. So.
Yeah, and Nazi gets a few goals. Ross always wading with a few goals. So that's what I was trying to get at with that they're going to have to come from around the pitch, because some people are going to have to step up and just get those 4 or 5 goals from the back.
Yeah, not only is Nottingham injured for the first match, but Toby Savin is suspended. So, I mean, coming into what wasn't going to be an easy match to begin with without your most experienced defender and your starting keeper, it's definitely going to be an uphill climb on Saturday.
Yeah, it would have been, but I think this new keeper, I've seen him in pre-season, Jensen, he looks something special. He's about 6'6", 6'7", but that's not what makes him a good keeper. He gets down well, he's a good shot stopper, commands his area. Just after a few games, you can just tell he's the real deal. Is this guy?
Do you foresee him taking the starting job?
I do, and it'll be interesting to see how Toby responds to that, because I can definitely see him as a starter for us.
I think that red card just come at a bad time when it carried over to this season, because if you've seen more of Jensen than I have, but from what I've seen, he's definitely got the skill set to be a number one, and it's his year really to step up and prove himself for his parent club at Burnley. It's going to be a tough run for Toby to get back in the squad, especially if they come out of the gate on Saturday against Charlton, and he has a good game. One of the players that we haven't mentioned yet that I'm excited about, that I liked him when he was there for a short spell, is Mo Sangare.
Yeah, me too.
I think again, he falls in that Joel Pritchard category of having to stay healthy. If he stays healthy, and you have those two fellas on the pitch running the midfield, I think that's going to be a big plus for Stanley. But my thinking is that this year they're going to have to play a possession type game so that they can keep possession in the midfield and allow the one or two strikers or whoever's playing up front to sort of get open. And they've got the players in midfield to do that. And if you have possession of the ball, you're not going to get scored on. So, and that's another defensive strategy that maybe Coleman might be looking at. But I think Sangari is definitely one that I'm looking for a good season. The other concern I have is that they still didn't sign a out and out left back. The only one that's listed on the squad as a left back is Rosario Langelo. I don't know how he's going to fit in, if he's going to play left back, or do they go with three centre backs? I haven't a clue.
Yeah, I think on that note, Tony, I've been in touch with Jimmy Bell this week and discussing a few things, and it's not for the one to try. And I think they've been. It's very difficult for them, I think, to find the right left-sided player just at the back. They've got players who they think can fill in, but they're not very easy to come across a good left-sided defender.
Yeah, I'm not blaming the club. I'm just saying.
It's difficult. Yeah.
One guy we haven't talked about that was brought in over the summer was Matt Lowe. This is probably the guy that's our biggest chance to become the guy that gets 10 goals for us out of the striker position. Just looking through, he was in the National League North with Brackley Town for the last 6 years. In 2018, he scored 15 goals for them. So, I mean, he's a guy that, at least in lower leagues has put the onion in the bag a few times. It looks like he's a guy that was, a school teacher and playing in the National League, kind of Colby Bishop 2.0, if you will. So what are you guys' thoughts on him? Do you guys think that Matt Lowe could be a 10 to 15 goal guy for us?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen it. I've only seen him in the odd game in pre-season. It reminds me of Colby in a way that he's he can hold the line. He's physically strong, and I think that a lot of that comes from playing in non-league football, where it tends to be physical. If you're weak in playing up front in those sorts of leagues, you're not going to last very long. And he seemed to have a decent touch. The proof will be if he can score enough goals, and I don't think anybody knows that now. I mean, he'll be optimistic. He'll want to give it a go, and hopefully he can.
He's listed at 179 centimeters. What's that convert to?
I'll have to Google that one.
Yeah, I think he's around 6'4", 6'5", or in that range.
Yeah, I might be slightly less than that. I'd say just a touch over 6 foot, I'd say, but I might be wrong.
That new lad, Cisse, I think he's listed at 6'4". So there's some height there that they could put in the box. I mean, you've got Sean obviously crossing the ball, and you've got Mitch Clark and Tommy with the throw-ins. They're all offensive weapons, if you will. But you got to replace for now the height in the box when you had Nottingham up there, and of course with Sykes. But I wanted to ask too, is that since Nottingham could be out for a few matches, and he really is, when you lose Sykes, he really is the leader, if you will, of the back line. Who do you think is going to step up and fill in for him while he's on the sidelines? What do you think, Darren?
I think two people who are going to have to step up and who will step up and are good players are Rich Bagaloo and Harvey Rogers. So I can see those, and both in their own right. I like both of those, and I think they can do a solid job. Those two might end up playing with Michael Nottingham in a 3 as well when he comes back. So I don't know. We'll see what happens on that route.
And I think it's
Harvey Rogers is definitely probably the guy with the most experience. The guy that I think was possibly interesting is a guy that came in on loan, which is Ryan Astley. Do you guys have you guys seen him play at all? Do you have any thoughts on him?
Yeah, I watched him in a game. He seemed quite steady. He looked like he had a bit of pace. So he could be thrown into the mix as well, because they're all big guys. he might be one who's got that bit of extra pace so that he could end up playing at fullback if we haven't got anybody in at that left side. So I'm not too sure, but he looked promising as well.
Astley, he's in on loan, but we're never going to give him up. We're never going to let him go.
Oh, I'm surprised you know that. I'm surprised you know that song, Phil. He's from this area. Rick Astley.
Phil had his poster up in his bedroom when he was a young lad. I think speaking of Astley, I think he might be injured. I don't know if he's going to be available Saturday or not. I can't confirm that, but I thought I heard that he might have a knock. But we'll see. But another player I think that probably will stick with the team this year and has a chance to sort of jump in might be Harry Parrott, because he's really went on the loan spells. He's really developed and done a great job where he's been at, and the teams that have had him have loved him. So Harry Parrott might be in with a look back there as well. But
I hope he does.
Yeah,
our buddy Harry Austin has been following him, so he'll be happy to hear that.
Yeah, it'd be good to see him get a run of games, Harry.
And one of the things we talked about before, and last year when we did our sort of review, a preview, I should say, is that we looked at a starting lineup who we put out there. And I think because of the players that have left, injuries, and players that have come in, I think that's just next impossible to do that. So what I did, in my view, is I just I picked players that I would like to see start every match or be the team that it's built around. I'll give you my group of players, and then if there's any you don't agree with, or if there's anybody else that you think that we should be, you guys can throw yours in afterwards.
Sounds perfect to me. I'll go last. You and you go first, and then Darren, and I'll go last.
These are the players I see that really are going to determine the success of the season, and that's Mitch Clark, Nottingham, Rich Baggiloo, Ethan Hamilton, Sean McConville, Mo Sangari, Joel Pritchard, Tommy Lee, and Harry Pell. And I think the team and the success has got to be built around those.
Yeah, and like I said, the established players, and it's the sprinkling of the unknown that we need to put around those, isn't it? And hoping 2 or 3 of the new guys kick on, and I'm sure they will. That's what happens every year, isn't it? But that's the core of the team and the squad. Ethan Hamilton as well. He needs a shout out because he's a great player for me. I love watching Ethan play. He gets around the pitch, good touch, can shoot. He's for that level of football. I think he's excellent.
Equality. Yeah.
Tony, did you mention Liam Coyle?
No, I didn't. I like him. I think he might be taking over from Seamus Keneally, but I didn't mention him because I don't know if he's an automatic starter every match. So anyway, what do you think, Phil?
Like you said, I think maybe you see him splitting time with Seamus. I mean, when we talked to John Coleman and Jimmy Bell, they made it pretty clear that both Seamus and McConville are going to finish out their career with Stanley. And, I really love that, and the fact that you have 2 veteran leaders that have been with the club. They know the Stanley way, if you will, that they can teach it to the young guys. They're both also reaching an age where, injuries and things like that may not allow them to play 40 games every year. I mean, McConville played 45 games last year. I think if we get 35, 40 starts out of Sean this year, that would just be incredible. And then with Seamus, I definitely think, like you said, we need kind of a captain to be, and maybe Liam Coyle's that guy that kind of follows in his footsteps.
Yeah, definitely. One other player who's causing a little bit of a stir amongst Stanley supporters we haven't mentioned is Josh Woods. He's only a young guy. Frustratingly, I haven't seen him play. He played in the friendly against Blackburn, did really well. and he played very well in a match last season when I was on holiday again. He came on as a sub and made a big impact in that game, and I can't remember who we were playing at the time, but I was aware. And both my dad and my son who watch, they said he was excellent, and other people online are all raving about young Josh. Apparently, he's a very exciting player.
Yeah, I don't know much about. I don't know if when I watched him last season, if I saw him play much. So I really can't give much comment. But like you say, yeah, if he's and this is the thing with only 2 or 3 sort of positions that could be available depending on injuries. Players, when they get an opportunity to get in, they got to grab that ring, don't they? They've got to sort of like Mitch Clark did, because he was out, and then once he got a chance to go in, he made that right back position his own. So I think there's some hungry players out there that like him. And I don't know. And the other centre forward they got listed that I haven't seen much of is Joe Hardy. I don't know whether he's on the radar for to contribute this season or not.
Yeah, it's definitely a massive squad, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was just going to mention Hardy myself because, I mean, he's a guy that, he came from the Manchester City Academy. He played with Liverpool. So, I mean, he was certainly a guy that, has experience with some of those big clubs. And, we haven't seen much of him, but at that forward position, I mean, it's wide open. And if Lowe isn't the guy, then maybe it ends up being Hardy that gets the 10 or 15 goals for us.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, there's a photographer at Stanley everyone knows, Kipax. It's Tony Greenwood. He goes under the name of kipax.com. You can go online and view all his photographs every week from games. And he went and did the pre-season shoot last week, I think it was, this week, and he said it's the biggest squad photograph he's ever taken. So it just tells you, the strength in depth. There might not be players knocking on the door yet this year, but looking forwards to 2-3 years' time, I think we're in a good place. I mean, even the under-23 squad, I've seen that announced, and I'm thinking I wouldn't mind going to an odd game of under-23s football and watching some of those guys.
Yeah, the lineup they had out the other day. There is definitely some talent in that under 23s, and it's nice to see that they've signed the contracts to players that have come up from the youth team. Leslie Adekoya seems like an exciting young player, and young Lewis Hood is a goalkeeper. So I think with the system they've got, the youth team, the under 23s, they're really developing players that can push the first team, and also if they do move on and they're under contract, they'll get some money for the development.
Yeah, and it's a word that sometimes uses a cliche, but it's true in this way. There's a pathway, and they're signing at 16, 17, and these guys who are 17-year-old playing in youth teams and then under 23s, they can see a route to playing league football, can't they?
Exactly, and I think that's when they. And we talked about that with Chris Turner, that there's so many people going into those big academies. Now there's other academies that they can go to, and they think they may have a better opportunity or chance to make it into the professional ranks with a team like Accrington. And I think in the last 2 to 3 years, the youth team and the under 23s has come leaps and bounds. And he's going to be part of the success of the first team.
Absolutely. One of the things when I was watching the video this morning with Enoch, they asked him about signing his first professional contract with Accrington, and he said, "Yes, this is my dream come true." And I don't think that necessarily 10 years ago that you would have had 22-year-old kids signing a contract with Accrington and saying, "This is my dream come true." And I mean, that just tells how far the club comes, that it's signing a contract with the Accrington Academy is a prestigious and exciting thing. And, looking back, 2018 was when we started across the pitch. So we're going on 5 years now. And other than the infrastructure and the stadium itself, the academy and the youth program is far and away what I've seen have the most growth over the past 5 years.
Yeah, most definitely. Phil, and that was my point really about some of these players we're signing, and I think we as fans should have some patience this season because, it may not be a season where we, push for playoffs because we've so many young players. Maybe some of them might gel and we kick on, but you've got to look at the bigger picture, and with so many good young players coming through, it's exciting times, not just over one season, over the next 5-10 years.
And with a lot of the youth, like you said, Darren, they're developing. The one player that we haven't mentioned that I wanted to get your thoughts on, because he could actually qualify for an interview as a veteran and also as a player, is Sean Wally, that was re-signed from on a free from Shrewsbury. What do you think he's going to bring to the team?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because we've already got an experienced player in Sean McConville. Whether he's back up for Sean, or it's difficult to see them both playing on either side. But you don't know. Sean, well, he can play in a few positions. He might get him playing in more of a central midfield. He can same with Sean. So with Sean McConville. So I'm intrigued by that one, especially with his age and coming back. Is he coming back as cover for other players? Do they see him having a key role? Do they see him as a starter every week? I just don't know, and I'm sure John and Jimmy have got it all worked out, but it'll just be intriguing to watch that, because obviously he's got ability. He's been well liked at the clubs he's been at since he left Stanley as a youngster. He's made a living in football at a decent level, and now he's come back for a swan song at Stanley. So it's always interesting to when players do come back right at the end, if it works out or not, and hopefully it will this time.
I wonder if for a fellow like him and with Seamus Keneally, do you think they might be defensive replacement or coming on as subs in the 60th to 70th minute mark for players like Sean and for players like Liam? I mean, they've got tons of experience, and you're really not. They can come on for 20, 30, 40 minutes, and really not. You're not going to lose a beat, are you?
No, more so Seamus Keneally coming on to shore it up if you win here. I think Sean Wally will probably come on if you're losing or drawing and you push him, because he does like to he run with the ball, and he's more of an attacking player, offensive player. So I think they could both be used as subs for the last 30 minutes for probably completely different reasons, but both using the experience.
Where do we see Liam Isherwood? Do we see him going out on loan?
I hope he does, especially if Toby stays. I mean, that's an unknown quantity, isn't it? What's going to happen with Toby. But if Toby stays and Toby and the new keeper Jensen battling out for number one position, I think it'd do Liam really good to go in perhaps conference level, National League, and maybe have a full season for someone and really learn what it's all about.
Yeah, I think a lot might have to do with what happens while Toby is suspended, and whether or not it looks like like Darren was saying, if Toby ends up being somebody they decide, hey, we can trade him while his value's high, then obviously Liam stays around to be the backup. Otherwise, I think that Liam does have to go on loan at this point and get some games under his belt that aren't at the youth level.
Yeah, definitely. So, guys, after speaking of it as we have, the big question is, where do you think we'll finish this season? Phil, what's your thoughts? What position?
Well, I tend to
no pressure.
I tend to like to look at wherever we finished last season and hope we do at least one better than that. 2 years ago, we finished 11th. I was hoping we would finish at least 10th last season. We came pretty close and came in 12th, although I don't know that the position in the standings necessarily represented how well Stanley played. If you look at things like goals allowed, I think that Stanley certainly was probably lucky that they got a lot of points early in the season and didn't have to find themselves fighting a relegation battle late. Losing the players that we have is big. I mean, losing a Bishop and not knowing that you have anybody to replace him that has any kind of league experience, that's scary. Certainly losing Sykes when, you've already seen Burgess leave last year. You also had Mark Hughes move on last year. We saw Callum Johnson leave the year before that. So, I mean, experienced defenders keep leaving. That's a concern. On the flip side, it is a very deep team, probably the most depth that we've had in terms of squad size. There's going to be some young guys that step up. I'm excited about guys like Matt Lowe that could, easily turn into the next Bishop. I'm going to be conservative, though, and I'm going to go with 14th.
Yep. Tony, what about yourself?
Well, again, Phil, you're completely wrong. I really don't think I don't know if this is controversial or not, but I don't think we're going to miss Bishop and Sykes as much as what people think. I think Colby played a lot on his own up front, and his link-up play was very good. I just don't think he was outstanding the last part of the season after the January window talk, and so I think we've got enough that will pick up the slack for him. Sykes has got tons of talent. What concerned me last year was his discipline. Discipline is a word. Yeah, thanks. And I think we've got a player in that Rich Bagaloo that I think has the potential to really step in and take over from Ross Sykes. So I'm comfortable with that. And just to sort of give a position away, I had written down before we did this 11th to 14th, and I always like you, Phil, like to see an improvement over that. But you know what? I just I got that feeling that we're going to do well. People are going to stay healthy. There's going to be a couple players that'll come out and surprise everybody, and I'm going for 6.
Nice. I hope you're right and I'm wrong.
Yeah, I hope you're right. Sorry, I've probably conservatively I've gone for 12 again, but based on so many unknowns, it is a stab in the dark, really. It could be below that, it could be above it. Let's hope Tony's right, but my gut feeling says we'll be somewhere around mid-table again.
Yeah. Before we move on to other business, we've covered a lot there in the squad. I just want to give a shout out to Handy Holt and the club for allowing the iFollow to go forward for the time being, as we know, and we can get the match on Saturday. I know he's meeting.
I bought mine this morning.
Yeah, I'll get mine done sorted tomorrow. He's got a meeting with the AFL, and I know I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I think really the funds should be distributed a bit better than they are, and I understand Andrew's position, but from a fan overseas, I'm thankful that they've allowed us to watch the match. So thanks to Andy, Dave Burgess, and everyone at the club for that.
Absolutely. I think that it's a difficult position for everybody because I think that the EFL has proven time and again that they usually don't have the best interest of the clubs at hand, especially when it comes to the smaller clubs. The EFL is about the profits of the EFL, and the clubs are just kind of on their own to twist in the wind at times. And, certainly when it comes to something like iFollow and, distribution of the funds there, when it comes to a team like Accrington Stanley, you're not talking about hundreds of millions of dollars worth of players and things like that. You're talking a balance sheet that a few 100,000 pounds to speak in English terms. I said dollars a minute ago, but a few 100,000 pounds here or there makes a huge difference in the team being able to operate or not being able to operate. And for that reason, it's important that any kind of income that's coming into the team is distributed fairly. And that's what makes it such a difficult position where if the funds are being distributed to the large teams and the small teams are getting the short end of the stick, then it makes it hard for the small teams to want to continue to offer the content. At the same time, streaming really is the future in terms of sports viewing. The in-stadium experience, that's always going to be first and foremost, and that's where the game began. But especially as the game grows overseas, and we're speaking from the U.S., Canada, we have supporters groups in Ghana, Australia, and for folks outside of the area that's able to get into a car or get onto a train and go to the Wham Stadium, streaming is the only way to see Accrington Stanley. So I mean, for us, iFollow at this point is the lifeline for us to be able to watch the club. And I don't know if the answer is for Accrington to go the direction of I think Sunderland and Plymouth both run their own streaming service. I don't know the logistics of that, if that's something that Accrington could do. I don't know, whether Andy's meeting with the EFL will lead to a more fair distribution. But the thing that I do know for sure is that in order for Accrington Stanley to be able to grow to a team that can be bigger than League One and eventually reach the championship, which is the stated goal, that it's going to take more support than just the Accrington or Hindburn area is able to give. I mean, I think the Accrington Hindburn area is about 90,000, and then the rest of the world is 7 billion people that can stream the game on iFollow, and I'd like to be able to continue to spread the word of the best club in the world and be able to say, just go to accringtonstanley.co.uk, buy your pass, and then watch the match this Saturday.
Yes, Phil. So I mean, it'll all, I'm sure, work itself out. I don't know the ins and outs of the side of it, what Accrington are getting out of it and what Andy's beef is with it all. And I'm sure he's, feeling it from a smaller club compared to the larger clubs and not being fair, etc., which has always gone on. And I think he's acknowledged that the supporters from overseas is a completely different entity, and it needs to carry on one way or another. We need to keep engaging with supporters from other clubs. The opportunities are endless. I mean, even you go outside of football, you look at cricket, for instance. I know it's not popular in the US, but after the NFL and the Premier League, the IPL with cricket I think it's the third biggest, and that is streamed all over the world. And that's just the kind of opportunities. For instance, if you found a niche in India or wherever, it could be in anywhere in Asia, that people got interested in Accrington and they all started supporting Accrington Stanley. It does happen. You do see this happening around the world, and it's a revenue stream, Ghana, isn't it?
It's in Ghana.
Sierra Leone.
There's revenue streams out there. Yeah, so Spain, we'll see how it unfolds. Yeah, in the next few weeks, but I'm sure there'll still be opportunities for people, who support this podcast and watch from far away, and I'm sure there'll be opportunities to continue to do so.
Well, and it allows us, especially Phil and myself, to watch them every week when we can't see a match live, and it allows us to comment, hopefully give some insight and with some knowledge when we do a podcast. And there's nothing worse if we want to talk to a player, interview a player, and we haven't seen him play. I mean, that's just not fair to him and to our listeners.
Might have to send you over with the James Bond spy camera if push comes to shove.
I think Gary DeMaine has tried that already. I think he's been doing a little bit of unofficial filming. But if you're going to rely on Gary with his camera after he's had 3 or 4 pints of lager to get, I don't think anybody's going to buy that.
I just can't wait to see Phil when he sees my expense account when I'm over in England. Before we wrap up, I wanted to, if we ask Darren how you mentioned it, Phil, too, about the Supporters Trust. Maybe Darren can give us an update on the ins and outs of what's going on with your group.
Yeah, well, there's obviously. Peter Leatham does enormous amount of work, and there's a lot of things going on every day almost. But a couple of big events that I'm involved with that I can just mention. We've got this annual sponsored walk, the Jack Barrett sponsored walk, coming up in October. We've picked out a couple of routes. There's going to be a walk from Bolton, which is around about 20 miles. I think we did 16 from Rochdale last year. So we've again mentioning Gary DeMaine get back in training, and get on that treadmill. So he needs to come with me. And then there's a second walk from Burnley. Now, interestingly enough, Across the Pitch is playing a big part in all this, actually, because we always choose a charity for 50% of the funds. So 50% goes to the Supporters Trust, and that goes into a lot of things to make the experience on match days better for the supporters, and 50% for a local charity. And this year, based on the story of Chris Grimshaw and the work he's doing, we're putting 50% towards the AA meetings in Accrington that Chris is heavily involved with. So, from his story on Across
Fantastic.
the Pitch, and it's come out. We're hoping to fund a room for the AA meetings for people in Accrington. Chris is heavily involved with that. Chris is going to do the walk from Burnley as well with the guys. So. It's gone full circle between the trust and Across the Pitch, Grimmy, and it's a good news story.
It's something I've really seen, grow every year that you guys have done it over there.
Yeah, we're managing to put a bit back into the community. We did Iron Baby Bank last year, and a good. Obviously, another good thing is the air, and with Grimmy involved, it'll be a good fun as well.
And I'm over there in October too when you're doing those. So I don't think you can pencil me in for the Bolton one, but the Burnley one I may have to think about.
I think you could do that. It's very easily. And the second Supporters Trust event that I'm going to be involved. A really interesting and exciting one as well. Deborah Phillips and myself, on behalf of the Supporters Trust, we're hosting a group of Ukrainian people who are currently living in Accrington, the Ironburn area, and they're going to be coming to a Stanley match, the Tranmere game in the Cup. So I think there's about 20 or 30 adults and children combination who are going to be coming to a game, and we're going to be looking after them for the night, and hopefully they enjoy the Accrington Stanley experience.
Oh, that's excellent work on both projects there, Darren. I think that's the first one, and with Chris Grimshaw and the impact that his story had with us Across the Pitch, and I think that's tremendous. And then also what you're doing with the people from Ukraine, and I think that's fantastic. That says a lot about what we're about, what the club's about, and the people that are associated with it. And well done.
Yeah, it goes back to what we've always talked about, that Accrington Stanley is more than just a football team, but it's part of the fabric of the community. And, there's so many positive things that have come out of that walk, and it looks like this year might be the biggest and best ever.
As long as the walk is not on the motorway, I might be.
It'll be on the canal, I think.
All right.
There's no hills on a canal, is there? So.
No. Okay, well, I'm intrigued. Anyway, we'll talk about that over a pint when I'm there.
Yeah, definitely.
That's it for me, fellas.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that we've touched on just about everything that we had planned to talk about. Darren, did you have anything else?
No, I think we've covered a lot there, guys. It's been good fun. I know we started off with a player interview, a legend interview last week, and I'm really raring to go for the rest of the season. So, no, thanks, guys. I enjoyed the chat tonight. Yeah,
and the Chris Turner interview was really a good one, and it's doing well, and we put it back out again, and it's such an important message for players or people or families that are looking at football as a professional career. And if you know anybody who's going through that, give it a listen, because there's some great insights from Chris. But anyway, gentlemen, always a pleasure talking to you two, and it was a good chat this afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tony, like you said, that Chris Turner interview, that was just a really good interview all around, because it not only touched on the history of Accrington Stanley, but also some important topics outside the pitch and, kind of the current state of youth football. So if you haven't had a chance to hear that, definitely give that one a listen. Otherwise, I really, really enjoyed the chat. And I hope that Tony is right with his prediction and I'm not right. But at the end of the day, I think that we're all in agreement that, as long as 20th and better and still in League One next season, that it'll be a success for Accrington Stanley. And like Darren said, I think the thing that we're all most excited about is the future, the growth of the youth team, some of these young players that we've signed. And I do think that if it's not this season, at least a sixth place and finally making into the League One playoffs, or even better, is definitely in the near future for Accrington Stanley. And as always, in Coley we trust.
Definitely, it's going to happen in the next few years. So we're going to the championship. Don't worry about it.
I'm going for a 2-1 win on Saturday for Stanley.
Darren, you have a prediction for Saturday?
1-0 Stanley. I'll go for.
I'll go 0-0.
Right. Okay. We've covered quite a bit there.
Yeah. Okay, gentlemen.
Who's gonna put a bet on, Phil? 0-0. You could be right on that one. You never know.
On 3, 1, 2, 3. On Stanley on.
Stanley on. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, fellas.